Hi, my name is Jared, and this is the Tipsy Bard. Guess what we're talking about today?
What are we talking about?
Talking about Halo Reach. But did you know that Halo Reach is the very first one in the series? No, you didn't. I'm gonna answer that for you because you didn't. You probably didn't either. Before I go on, this has been out for like 10 years, so like I'm not gonna say spoilers because it's been out for 10 plus years. So if you haven't played it, then that's on you. Get with the program. So humanity is like 25th century, and we start in the year like 2517-ish, I'm gonna say. And so what's going on is like the humanity's reached out across the spaces, and people have gone and colonized the outer colonies. And that's like the outer planets, and there's inner planets, outer inner colonies, and there's always like a big circle thing. And so the outer colonies, there's some factions that are not happy with the way that things are being run, because the UNSC, which is United Nations Space Command, that is like over controlling things, is overseeing things, and some people are not happy with that. So some people turned out, they created a faction called insurrectionists, and so the insurrectionists in UNSC is fighting the insurrectionists because they're like causing a rebellion. That's like year 2517. So to respond to that, UNSC decides to steal children from parents and then replace it with sick children because they die in like 5 years, and those parents have to bury those children, but the actual children go on to become Spartan 2s, and they go on to fight the insurrectionists. And that's like that's when they start the program, is 2517. And then 8 years later, the aliens, the Covenant, they meet the aliens, the Covenant, for the first time on a world called Harvest, and it's in the outer colonies. And the Covenant are these beings who are like super religious, and they see humans as being like unclean beings, and they are like, you know what, you're unclean, we don't like you, we're gonna destroy you. And so they freaking just start destroying all humans like everywhere, and they start destroying all outer colonies, and they start moving into the inner colonies, and the UNSC is like, I don't know how to fight you, so we're gonna create another Spartan program called the Spartan 3s, which are like Japanese kamikazes. Just kamikazes, we're not gonna talk Japanese, because that was World War II, and we don't talk about that because we're past that, because we're good people. Then in the year 2552, that's where we start with this whole thing, and that's current year. My drink just spit on me. So despite best efforts, the UNSC is like fighting the Covenant, and the Covenant is like, no, dude, I'm gonna kill you. And so they can only really like slow them down enough to the point where like they're still like killing all of the outer colonies and move into the inner colonies. And now we get to Reach. Reach is a world that's like the last military stronghold between the outer colonies and Earth. And obviously we don't want the Covenant reaching Earth, because that would be bad juju. We don't want that. And so now we have this one like Spartan team, like this badass Spartan team, but it's mostly made up of Spartan 3s that are the kamikazes. I don't know why I say it like that, kamikazes, but they're mainly Spartan 3s. There's one Spartan 2 who's a big old bastard. His name is Jorge. He's a Spartan 2, and their team is called Novelty, and they are stationed on Reach to help defend against the insurrectionists. Okay, quick story. Do y'all remember, I'm talking to you guys right now, do y'all remember the original ad spot for Halo Reach, which was, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to them. Their original ad spot for Halo Reach was called Deliver Hope, I think, and it was where this blue Spartan, her name is Kat, is running this bomb through like this battlefield and is trying to get to a Covenant ship, and she gets blown by this ghost who just comes down and blows them, whatever, her arm just gets mangled, and this badass black Spartan comes up and just takes the bomb and jetpacks up to the Covenant ship and throws the bomb in, and he doesn't make it out because he dies in the blast. That was Spartan Tom A293, I think his name was. That was the original Noble Six. By the way, that plan, that whole drop bomb into Covenant ship thing, that was Cat's plan. That's gonna come later.
Full circle.
Full circle. Just you wait. That's good shit. Okay, so we get into Halo Reach. We start with, it pans onto Reach, this planet, and we get a new Spartan come down. He's a black Spartan 3 dildo looking, and he comes down, and his name is technically Spartan Beta 312 or something like that, because of their actual names. So he's going down to meet his new team. He's been reassigned. He's a Black Ops dildo, like I just said. His like entire conscript thing is like blacked out, right? Like nobody can read. Like he's just like some badass dude. So Colonel Holland is briefing the team, and while Noble Six, the new Noble Six, is walking up, and the entire team is just looking at him like, "F you. Who are you? Why are you filling these shoes? Like these are some big shoes you have to." By the way, shout out to original Noble Six, dude. After Holland gets this briefs Noble team, he says, "Hey, we have a relay station that got knocked out, right?" Apparently, they're thinking like insurrectionists are on Reach, and they're like, "Hey, they killed out a relay station. We need Noble team to go out and regain the station and figure out what the hell's going on." So Noble team is dispatched out to the relay station. They go out, and Daddy Carter, by the way, Daddy Carter is like Noble One. He is Daddy. He's number one. So they get to the relay station. They secure the relay station. They figure out what's going on, and they're like, "Oh, shit. It's the Covenant. It's not the insurrectionists. It's the Covenant." And so Carter is like, "I need to tell Colonel Holland," and he's like, "Hey, Colonel Holland, the Covenant's on Reach." And so Colonel Holland's like, "Oh, shit, dude. So Covenant's here. We need to do the directive, the winter contingency." I don't know where. It
says it on the screen.
Oh yeah, it does. All right, so we're on July 26th. It's been 2 days since Colonel Holland initiated the winter contingency directive, and so Noble team is now dispatched to Oni base, and because it's under attack by a Covenant corvette. And so Cat and Six go down, and they clear out the entire freaking courtyard. They're just like, "Fuck y'all, we're just Spartans. We're gonna kill you." And so they kill them all, and they get to a comm station. They reactivate the comm station because it's important to talk to command and to talk with the nearby air base, which is called Airview Base, I think, which houses like anti-air batteries to kill the Covenant ships, things that go boom. Then Noble team, after they secure all that, they advance into the actual sword base. It's Emil and Six, and they're clearing the skies of phantoms. They get to the rooftop of Oni Base.
What are phantoms? So what's a phantom?
It's a flying thing. It's a flying, shooting plasma thing, and it goes pew. And so Emil and Six, they have like rocket launchers, and they go pew, and they go pow, and it blows them up. And then so they clear the skies, which is good because we want skies over sword base to be clear. So once the skies are cleared, UNSC sends a pair of longswords. I don't remember what longswords are, but they send a pair of longswords to push the Covenant corvette that's sitting above sword base away, so that they can send Mac rounds into the Covenant ship, and they do. It goes boom. But Noble team is then so they go back down into sword base, and guess who they're greeted by?
Who?
Dr. Catherine Halsey.
Who's that?
My dog. So they talk to Dr. Catherine Halsey. She is the mother of the Spartan program. Like quite literally, like she designed this program. And so they're talking with her, and she doesn't really care about them. She's like, hey, when you were at the relay station, did you find one of my scientists, by the way? And they're like, yeah, we did. He was f***ing dead. And she's like, cool, I don't care if he's dead. Do you have his research, by the way? And Kat's like, hey, I had this key card that I stole off of him. She's like, how f***ing dare you? You better f***ing hand that over before I turn you into the UNSC. And she's like, oh, damn, all right, here you go.
She's like a real good mom.
Yeah, I would say she's a good mom.
Yeah, real good mom.
Did you know that Jorge actually calls her mom? Like, yeah, he's like a big dude, and he goes, hey, mom. And she just goes, George. Just brushes him off like, what a bitch. All right, so it's like 2 weeks later. After they cleared out Sword Base and talked to Catherine Halsey about everything, it's then they have another mission now. So 6 and June are now performing a night ops recon mission because apparently during this 2 weeks, the Covenant set up a sort of dark zone on some continent of Reach. And so like, hey, we need to stoke this out. And so they start checking this out. However, during this mission, they actually discovered that a Covenant stealth pylon, of which they plant like an explosive on to go boom, and it goes boom. But this is a short-lived victory because they discover like after it goes boom, they go over and they find like a huge invasion force and like, oh shit, there's only 2 of us. We can't kill all these guys. Like, we just can't do it. There's just 2 of us and there's thousands of them. And so Kat is like, hey, you 2, come back to base. We're gonna attack them in the morning in a surprise attack. And the next morning. So literally the next morning, the Noble team and UNSC army go out and do a big old
You okay?
It's all on my arm. It's all on my shit. The UNSC, the armies that go and attack the Covenants in a surprise attack. And they go after one of these big old f***ing spires called Spire 1 because, oh my god, they can think of original names. This is Spire 1.
Is there a Spire 2?
Apparently there's like 3, so sure. Oh, I had to take a drink. So, oh, that's the strongest drink. So George and 6 go up to Spire 1. That's a strong drink. And 6 makes it all the way up to the top. And he disables the shields so Spire 1 can get blown up. And so George, I don't know how he escaped from the ground, but apparently George and Daddy Carter go and pick up 6 from the top of the thing. And they pick him up and they're like, hey, you're clear. You can blow up Spire 1. And so they send a Macron down through the atmosphere and someone's like, I don't remember who said this. Someone's like, oh my god, they're sending a Macron through the atmosphere. Holy shit. And they come in and they blow up the Spire. But before they could celebrate, a super carrier Covenant like uncloaks. It was just apparently just sitting in the air there and it just uncloaks. And so it uncloaks and it doesn't hire. It fires. Why would I hire a frigate? It fires on the UNSC frigate and it just blows it up. It just dies. And so they are like, oh shit, there's more Covenant here. And so Noble Team's like, hey, we gotta go talk about this and figure out what we're gonna do. Remember what I talked about earlier about how like Kat was like, hey, this was my original plan from back in April when I killed the original Noble 6. Guess what? I got the same plan, but slightly different. So apparently there's no more tactical nukes on Reach at all. So she's like, I have an idea. Why don't we take a slip space drive and turn it into a bomb? And then we can do the same thing and just throw it onto the Covenant ship and it'll go blow up. And everyone.
It worked out so well the first time.
Exactly, because it worked out so well the first time. And so to do that though, they need a ship to go into space. And then Cat just nonchalantly goes, there's a base near here that like supposedly not exists, but it exists. You just need to get permission. She's talking to Daddy Carter.
Hush, hush.
Yeah, it's like hush hush. It's like that military hush hush. It doesn't like Area 51 back in the day. It's like, hey, it doesn't exist, right? And so she's like talking to Carter, and she's like, hey, guess what? You're gonna have to talk to Colonel Holland and get permission. And Daddy Carter's like, hate when you pull my arm. And so, naturally, he contacts Colonel Holland, and they make their way to the base. August 14th. So they got permission from Colonel Holland, and they reach this non-existent base, and it's called Saber Program Launch Research Range, where George and Six, they commandeer a Saber ship, and all of a sudden it becomes apparent that Six is like some badass pilot who apparently piloted these ships before. Ooh, and Cat's like, hey, it was Cat or Carter, I can't remember, but they're like, hey, I was able to read your file, and like, I know all this shit about you now. And so they go up into space, and they fight off all these Covenant, like, hey, we're gonna kill you guys. We're gonna defend Anchor 9, which is like this space station thing. And then they go up to a ship that's docked there. It's called like the Savannah, I think. Oh, good. And so they get
You need a bucket?
Nope. So the Savannah is like, hey, we're gonna give you our slip space drive for this mission because we're f***ed anyway. So here you go. You can use it. And so then Jorge and Six take the slip space drive and they turn it into a makeshift bomb. They're like, hey, we need to commandeer one of these corvettes to meet up with the super carrier. We'll use its refueling route station plan thing to meet up with the super carrier, and we'll look like we're like docking with it or whatever. And so they go onto the ship with like some army units, and they fight off all the Covenant, and they take control of the ship. And they're like, okay, we're gonna program it, and we're gonna get onto its fueling route. They get onto fueling route, but as they're Jesus. As they're going, they realize that the slip space drive makeshift bomb, the detonator for it, got damaged.
That's not good.
No. George is like, hey, I'm your bro. I'm gonna throw you out of the airlock because that's safe. And I'm gonna blow up this ship manually. And I'm gonna save all of humanity on Reach. George. I love you, man. It was in vain, god damn it! Cause that out comes from the slip space warp drive, comes all these Covenant ships after the thing blows up, and they're like pew 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 pew, and they'll just show up over Reach, and it's just like, oh shit, this is the end.
So we died for nothing?
He died for nothing. My hand's sticky. I don't know where that came from. So where we leave off?
George sacrificed for nothing.
Jorge.
Yes, so they all come in. The Six is falling through space because George threw him out because he's a bro. And okay, so it's like, during this time, Six is falling down to Reach. So Six is falling down to Reach, and it's gravity, right? So he's falling through space. And he goes through the atmosphere, and he's literally got just his armor. He goes through the atmosphere, and he somehow clings to like some sort of jetpack or robot or something. I don't remember. And he falls through the atmosphere and goes crash lands into the planet, into Reach. And he's like, I don't know, miles away from the nearest city or whatever. He must have seen it when he was coming down through the atmosphere. He's like, hey, I can see it like every second, like I'm falling through the space. And so he's making his way. It takes him 2 weeks. It's spelled. It's on my leg.
Get you a bib.
It's on my leg. Wait. That's good stuff. So it takes him 2 weeks to walk to he literally walks on foot to the nearest city. How he survives with no food, no water, and no pooping for 2 weeks. Beyond me, I don't know.
Yeah.
Alright, I don't think the Spartan suits come with poop bags. Huh? I don't know. So he gets to this city, it's called New Alexandria. And he sees the Covenant and the UNSC army are fighting. And he's like, hey, I'm gonna help you guys, even though I'm like dying because I'm famished and unless, I don't know if he survived, whatever. But he's like, I'm gonna help you guys fight the Covenant. So they do that. He helps fight all the guys. And he's like, hey, there's civilians here in this city. Why are there still civilians in this city? We need to evacuate them. So he helps evacuate them, and then he gets comms like built back up and everything. So he finally makes contact with Noble Team. Noble Team, by the way, oh god. Noble Team, by the way, has thought for the last 2 weeks that both Jorge and Six died in that explosion. They're just dead. They just had no idea. And all of a sudden, Six is like, hey, I'm alive, bitch. Where you guys at? And so Kat is like, hey, you're alive, cool. Meet me on the rooftop over here, and Carl and Daddy Carl will pick you up. And so they go and he meets back up, and Six then proceeds to complete like several tasks, like from destroying Covenant comms jammers to protecting, what's his name? Edward Buck, I think is his name. It's actually his Falcon. He's defending him and the rest of his unit or whatever, and they're helping other civilians escape. Everything's like blurry.
Take your time, whenever you're ready.
Alright, so they're on. Shut up. So Kat calls on Six to aid her. They want to evacuate Oni HQ, which is their headquarters. They're on Reach. And so Kat and Six, they go inside. And Noble Team is finally reunited as a whole, except they're missing George. And Emil goes, hey, it's a family reunion. But it's not, because George isn't there. Fuck you, Emil, right? Like,
R.I.P. George.
George.
That's one of these.
Pinky out, bitches! Wait, I have to do the pinky out. Pinky out. Oh,
Making George proud.
that's good shit. Okay. So they go inside and they talk. And when they get inside to Sword Base, they're like, hey, we got some sort of order to go back into Sword Base. And so they're like, okay, so we're gonna go there. But the transmission is suddenly cut. And like during the middle of the transmission, and June notices like all the Covenant ships, they start leaving the area. And he's like, that's f***ing weird. And then like literally like the next second, the Covenant ships just start f***ing glassing the fuck out of the city, just obliterating the city. And it creates a shockwave, which Noble Team is just barely able to like get out of the way of. And they do that by taking an elevator down to like, they're going down underground. And they have to get to a radiation bunker. But to get there from the elevator, they have to go through a hallway, like a passageway. On the way there, Cat, blue armor, Spartan chick, missing arm, it's a mechanical arm, gets fucking shot in the head with a needle. Like a needle goes right there, right out of the side of her fucking head. God damn it, Cat. You fucking bastards! We gotta kill him now.
For Cat.
For Cat. So, what happens next? Oh. Oh. Okay, so it's been 3 days since they were in the bunker, and a UNSC Pelican is coming to pick them, so they exit the bunker, and they board the Pelican, and they go. What's he doing? My drink. Okay, so they exit the bunker. It's 3 days later, August 29th. So 3 days later, so 6 deploys with like these shock troopers. Isn't that from Star Wars?
Yeah.
It's the same universe. It's the same universe! Okay, so they deploy with the shock troopers, and they take out the Covenant. They take out the Covenant anti-air towers around Sword Base. And they're like, He's funny, Abbi. So they take out the things, and after they fight their way into Sword Base, and they discover that the coordinates they were initially given when they were meeting initially actually leads to like a room just full of bodies. Just you want to see bodies. So there's like a last stand. They're just all dead. There's nothing there. So they're like, what the fuck's going on? And all of a sudden, like an unknown AI comes up, like, hey, here's more. Here's new coordinates. It's below them. It's like in caverns, like below them. So like, oh shit, what are we doing? So we go underneath. We go down to the caverns underneath, and lo and behold, they find Dr. Catherine Halsey. Backtrack. So Dr. Catherine Halsey was actually presumed dead. Remember that glassing incident I just talked about, like a few months ago? Like, she was presumably presumed dead during that whole thing. It keeps spilling on me. And so she was like presumed dead. And so they see her and they're like, oh shit, you're not dead. What were you doing? She's like, so there's this like super secret artifact thing here from an ancient civilization that I've been trying to decrypt stuff from. So I need you to buy me time so I can finish decrypting this stuff. And Noble Team's like, sure, we got you. So they set up a defense perimeter around her lab, and they're like, hey, shoot off all the Covenant forces that are coming. They kill them all off. And so Noble Team, so they do that, and they kill off all the Covenant people. It's like getting me so bad right now. What's that? Okay. That's my drink. So everybody? Oh yeah, so Dr. Halsey finishes decrypting the data. Noble Team falls back into Halsey's lab, where she reveals a fragment of an AI, and the that actually looks really dope. Wait till you see this.
Sippy cup.
Okay, so they go into Dr. Halsey's lab, and she's like, hey, here's this AI fragment. This is called Cortana. And she explains that Cortana has been assigned as the custodian of this artifact's data. Hey, this doesn't spill when I do the thingy. And that Cortana has to be protected, and it has to be taken to the ship and has like a special mission. And Cortana's like, hey, Noble 6, I'm gonna pick you as my person, Spartan thing, to protect me and take me to the ship thingy. So Noble Team escorts Dr. Halsey to the landing pads outside, where some pelicans are awaiting. But it's here where Daddy Carter is like, he's realizing the situation, what's going on. He's like, hey, June, I need you to escort Dr. Halsey back to Castle Base while we go and escort Cortana to the shipyards where a so-and-so ship awaits, which leads into the first technically in developed game world game actually occurs. I can't remember what it's called. Wait. It's right here. Combat Evolved. It was the first game that was made, and that's what's leading into this. So we'll do that. I put it up. So anyway, Carter and team go to the shipyards, but en route, Carter's ship gets destroyed or gets damaged by Covenant onslaught. There's like pew pew pew, and they damage his ship. And so I think it's Emil and Six are like, hey, we're gonna have to like jump out of the ship and do it. They call it some weird military terms like aerial insertion thing. And so they have to jump it. Yeah, here's the ship and they go jump out of the ship. And so they jump out of the ship and they go into the shipyards. And Daddy Carter, fulfilling his role finally, takes his ship and kamikazes into the Scarab that's holding up Emil and Six. He just rams his fucking ship right up the asshole of this Scarab. Just fucking obliterates the fight. Just shit everywhere. Just like if you're going in dry, just like everywhere. So Daddy Carter, he kamikazes into the Scarab, up the butthole of the Scarab, and it goes pew, and it allows Emil and Six to succeed, and they are able to transverse into the shipyards, and they can start fighting on the Covenant forces, and they can kill the invading Covenant. So after Emil and Six put all the Covenant down, Captain Jacob Keyes arrives to receive Cortana from Six, because Six is carrying her in his head. But before the captain can depart, a Covenant battlecruiser arrives, shows up and blocks their escape, and they can't escape. And so what happens is that battlecruiser is there blocking the ship, and then at the same time, like another drop ship comes in, and they drop zealots. Is that right? Yeah, they drop zealots, and they come down, and Emil is like, hey, Six, you take care of the ships in the sky. I'm gonna go take care of the ground forces that were deployed, right? So Emil goes off and fights the zealots that come. He tries to fight off them by himself, one-on-one, and he kills one of them. He just like straight up shotguns one of them to the face, just dead. But while he does that, the other one comes up and just stabs him through the abdomen with I think it was an energy sword. Just straight up murks him, just dead. And so Six sees him. Six is like, oh no, Emil, you're dead.
Is that how he sounded?
Maybe? Well, that's how I sounded. Because technically we're Six, so yes.
Fair enough.
Yeah. They do that, and then the Marines on board the Pelican going to the Autumn, they plead with Six like, hey, we see all this shit on, come with us so that we can depart and we can leave. And Six realizes like, hey, no, we can't. Like, you see all these Covenant like ship thingies? Like, if you don't have covering fire, you're not gonna be able to escape and live with Cortana, who's on this special mission. And so like, okay, dude, you do you, we'll do us. And so Six mans one of the cannons and like takes out the battlecruiser's main weapon, just disables it. He's like, yeah, cool. And now that allows the Pillar of Autumn to escape, which is carrying Cortana and Master Chief. By the way, Master Chief is a Spartan 2, not a Spartan 3. So they escape, and then Six is like, hey, I'm gonna fight off these guys, and he starts fighting them off, and all of these ground forces start deploying, and Six is valiantly fighting them off and killing them and doing what he can to keep the forces focused on him rather than the escaping Pillar of Autumn, so that they can actually escape with the Hope. Why does that sound like Star Wars? That sounds like Star Wars. The New Hope. Oh. Six is fighting them off valiantly to allow Pillar of Autumn to escape, which has Master Chief and Cortana, so they can go off into Combat Evolved. That's technically the first game that was developed, not canonically. So while he's valiantly fighting them off, he fights and fights to the very end. He takes off his helmet, he drops it in the sand, he's injured, and forces keep coming and coming. He realizes at this point he can't escape. This is the end.
It's over.
It's over. But I'm not gonna go down without fight. And he fights and fights until they just gangbang him all around and just straight up murk him up the butthole, and he's dead. I have to pee so bad. So, alright, we gotta finish the story first. So, you remember how I said that, not Master Chief, Six dropped his helmet in the sand when he was fighting, right? Years later, it's 30 plus years later, we now see that grass has grown where his helmet has still laid. His helmet hasn't actually moved, but grass has grown. What this is showing us is that Reach has actually come back to life, and that the Covenant are no longer glassing the planet. And then we actually see in the distance a ship landing, so it shows that people are recolonizing Reach. So Reach has come back. It then also shows a scene where Dr. Halsey is commemorating Noble Team for the efforts to save humanity. She's still a bitch.
So Noble Team saved humanity in a sense.
No, not in a sense. They fucking did.
He looks like the bracelet. He looks like the chick from
Yes.
Alright, let's give him a big cheesy. Wait, I need a phone. I need an actual picture of this. We'll go portrait of it.
Did you get me a fish?